So this morning saw some adjustments, but the extraction yield for most of my shots was a little bit down as I've been tweaking the profiles. But I'm down to a lower ratio of 1.1 to 1. So my extraction yields have been around 16 to 17%, as opposed to what I would prefer, which is like 20 to 22%. This robusta shot turned out all right. I was playing around with if I pause the after the steam pre-infusion and don't do anything, what happens. Then I did some tests because I've been talking to Decent Espresso and trying to understand how water's coming out the dispersion screen. This isn't the part that came originally with the machine. This is the S-Works part. And so I looked at a couple temperatures and flow rates to understand how water was coming out. I was actually disappointed. I don't think it's S-Works, dispersion screen or diffuser that's the problem. Because I think this is the same one as or similar to the one before. It just has more holes. But in all of these, it just didn't hit the same way as I thought it would. So for the lower flows, I did two temperatures, 90 degrees Celsius as more of a standard of what everybody else uses. And then I went to 96 because still 96 is a place where a lot of people would have the temperature, even though I actually go a lot higher than that. But even at these two temperatures, water's coming out in a bit different way. And I'm aware that part of the issue is there's no back pressure. But at the same time, if it's not coming out even here, how would it come out even if there was back pressure? And is there any effect on the transient state? Because if it comes out really fast at the beginning, then you have this cascade effect that I'm trying to avoid. So it's coming out a little bit faster. It starts off sort of even, but uneven on the right side. And then, you have some issues on the left. The water, because of surface tension, is bunching up by the sides. So I wouldn't expect that as much. But the sides end up really pulling the water. So once the coffee all makes contact with the shower screen, once that shower screen is full, I could imagine this would be less of an issue. But until then, you could have this problem, this unevenness. So you can see it pulsing because it's the pump is trying to pulse out water at the desired rate. So, and then I have one more at 90 C at the same flow rate, which again is like, I shouldn't say disappointing, but it's it clearly shows that there either something more needs to be done or some better testing needs to be set up to unit test this kind of stuff. So I'll shut up and let you watch the last one. So I decided I needed to repeat the water dispenser test because where I was putting the water in was just to the right of where I'm putting it in now, which is where the temperature sensor goes. So I redid this test using diluted milk because I want to examine two problems I have with this design rather than a more like spider design. One is that the holes on the left side end up getting water going through them a little bit sooner than the right side. In a high pressure, high flow system, that might just be a transient problem, but it still causes a cascading problem in terms of the puck having channeling a little bit more on one side than the other. The other problem is that you have two streams of liquid that run into each other, and these are slow-mo videos, and I'm not trying to get really high pressures here, but when they run into each other, there will be turbulence. So here is, first a lower level liquid goes around and then kind of ends up going on top. And they all hit the points around the same times, but there's a little bit of unevenness there. So that was actually a little less concerning than what I started to see later in these tests. And so I just pushed a little bit more, tried to put more milk through there, but you're starting to hit some like pressure issues. So this puck is sitting on top of a little piece of plastic so that the liquid can go right through. But here is an interesting point. An air bubble ends up inside of here. And so it's interesting the effect that this air bubble has, because it could cause a problem if a bubble gets in the system, which could happen because you have a pause, or you have some amount of steam, or you have an air bubble come back up. But so now in this case, you have two air bubbles going around, and then when more liquid gets pushed through, the air bubbles block the liquid because of surface tension to those two parts. And you're not seeing liquid flow around them. So I don't know if that's happening in the system at higher pressures. I don't have a test rig to design for that. This is simply a test rig to try to understand where how this is functioning at a very basic unit test. So in this next test, I was actually just trying to flush the system with water. But what's interesting is because there's already a substrate in there, you can actually see where the water goes to first. And maybe it's because of the air bubbles. But the water ends up going to the holes on the left first before the holes on the right. Which again comes in the mind of, are there bubbles in the system that are causing problems? So after the filter was flushed, I put more of the milk solution through, and I had similar results as before. So we have a little bit of back pressure coming up because there's an air bubble in there that's kind of tricky, but so it goes around in the loop and then it goes in the left side. Part of this is because you have an air bubble that's trapped. And so the question I have is, how often do air bubbles get trapped in the actual machine? And do they cause the same problem in the machine? And if they do, would the same problem occur if you had a spider legs type design? Because I think with this design, when an air bubble gets trapped, if you push on it one way or the other, it doesn't necessarily force it to get out. So I went back to pulling my standard double. This shot had steam pre-infusion at the beginning, and then it backed off for, I think, about 8 seconds to just where it had no flow. I was hopeful maybe that would do something interesting, but I think the problem is it's doing whatever it's doing in the middle of the puck, it's also doing at the sides of the puck in terms of giving some initial heating. And the shot pulled okay. Like it I think one of the issues I've been having is I pause the shot, I do a bloom, and the problem is during that bloom you're again affected by this transient state, which makes me think that the decent espresso machine doesn't do well at the bloom as well as it should, because it then gives you this repeat of this transient state problem. So from the top, it looked like a tiny bit of channeling through the center, even though, or even in the puck, it kind of shows a little bit in the center. There's like a donut shape for the dark area. So I pulled another shot. I went back to an older profile, just like a couple profiles back when I hit the crazy like 24 extraction at like 18% TDS. Again, it starts out really nice, solid, but it flows a little fast and it kind of donuts there on the outside, and it's slightly concerning. But again, all of these shots are actually very delicious. So this has not been a difficult tuning in the sense of being frustrated that my shots taste like garbage. So this one very clearly, like in the center is where it's not flowing, and on the outer ring is where it flow is really going and extracting everything. So this shot actually ended up with a channel on the backside. I've been toggling with the paper filters on top. One thing I'm not sure about is how many times of use can they go without having big problems. But it starts off okay, and then at the top there, it starts to channel, which it's still flowing through the rest of the shot. But like when you can see the puck at the end, it's like night and day. It's pretty interesting. Delicious shot, but it was like 17% extraction yield at 14% TDS. So it's still a very strong shot. So as you can see, the top is where everything came from. Anyways, come back tomorrow for more.